Hey pal, you just blowing from Stupid Town?
We are now descending into the darkest depths of the iceberg. The light is beginning to disappear and darkness surrounds us all. In this video, we're going to delve into the 5th tier of the iceberg. Now, the iceberg is going to become far more supernatural, and less of it is going to be rooted in reality that you and I have come to know. We'll be covering everything from ghosts to aliens. In addition, if you enjoy these videos, I would love it if you could like the video, subscribe, and leave any comments below. So sit back and enjoy. For the first entry, we have the Bunny Man. So, what exactly is the Bunny Man? And no, he isn't your friendly bunny that delivers chocolate eggs on Easter. No, instead he's a lot more nefarious. I'm gonna cover him in summary here, but if you want the details of this, I actually made a full video where I do a deep dive into this character. You can check out the video if you want, and I'll probably leave a link in the description. Anyways, the Bunny Man is an urban legend that originated out of Fairfax County region of Virginia. The story does have many forms, but most of them involve a man in a bunny costume killing people near the Colchester overpass with an axe. Many of the stories usually involve supernatural elements, where the Bunny Man comes once a year and kills anyone near the bridge. Most of the time you can't even see him, and you certainly won't escape him. This supernatural version of the urban legend was popularized from a website known as the Castle of Spirits. In 1999, a man by the name of Timothy C. Forbes would post a story known as the Clifton Bunny Man. This would be the longest and most detailed account of the Bunny Man story, and has therefore attracted the most attention. Eventually, a man by the name of Brian A. Conley, a Fairfax County Public Library historian archivist, say that 5 times fast, would also ponder this question. He grew up in Fairfax County and heard tales of the Bunny Man growing up, but later in his life, he would conduct extensive research of this legend to discover its origin and whether there is any truth to the tale. In his research, he would find that this legend was based on some real-world incidents. On October 19, 1970, an Air Force Academy cadet named Robert Bennett and his fiancée were returning from a football game in Fairfax County, Virginia. They would pull over on the side of the road, and eventually a man wearing a supposed bunny costume would smash their window and demand that they leave. A few weeks later, a security guard named Paul Phillips nearby would encounter a similar man at the construction site for a new suburb in the area. At this construction site, the Bunny Man would threaten the security guard with an axe, demanding that he leave. Brian Conley would find that these two encounters were the oldest incidents that could actually be confirmed through third-party sources. At this point, it's fair to say that the legend of the Bunny Man exists, but its origin is not tied to some gruesome murder or supernatural event. Instead, it seems like he was an ordinary man that had a grudge against others around him. He didn't like trespassers or the development that was happening near his home. Again, if you want to know the full story, you can actually search this up and read the full report by Brian Conley. I'll probably leave another link in the description. Bodies buried in the Hoover Dam. In the 1930s, the US government would undergo one of their biggest and most important engineering projects. This would be the construction of the Hoover Dam, a dam that still provides electricity for millions of people today. Now, this urban legend essentially claims that during the construction of this dam, many workers would die on site and be buried within the concrete of the dam itself. This was due to the concrete pour being too important to halt. This means that if you fell in, you would most likely get covered up and left there. But what exactly is the truth? Well, during construction, many workers would actually lose their lives. In fact, a total of 92 would. This death was unusually high even for a project of this scale, and has helped to convince many that it is possible that some workers were actually buried alive in the concrete during the construction and left there. But again, there's never really been any evidence presented to prove this. In fact, it seems unlikely that if a body did fall into the concrete, that it would actually be left there. The dam required 4.4 million cubic yards of concrete, and the engineers were very particular about the pouring process. The dam needed to be strong enough to hold back the large forces of the Colorado River. Anything, even as small as a plank of wood, would need to be removed, as it could create issues with structural integrity. A large human body would certainly be removed, if not for the moral reasons, certainly for the sake of engineering. Also, the concrete was poured in sections, with the lower sections being allowed to settle before the next was poured. Even if a worker did fall in, they wouldn't really drown in a deep pool of wet concrete. They would be able to quickly get out of the concrete or be helped by somebody else. So, personally, I don't really think Hoover Dam is filled with bodies, but many others do. For our next entry, we have Annabelle. You know, I always found dolls to be creepy. Their dead eyes all staring at you, like they're staring into your soul. Well, this urban legend centers around a haunted doll named Annabelle that terrorizes everyone around her. Now, this doll is actually real and is currently located in the now closed occult museum of the famous paranormal investigators Ed and Lorraine Warren. If you've ever seen the Conjuring movies, then you're probably quite familiar with them. Anyways, according to the legend, the doll was given to a student nurse in 1971. Allegedly, the doll began to act strangely, and a psychic medium would tell the student that the doll was inhabited by a spirit of a girl named Annabelle. At this point, Ed and Lorraine would be contacted. The Warrens would conclude that the doll was haunted and would move it into their museum for safekeeping. Now, this legend has been quite popular for some time. As I said before, popular films like the Conjuring franchise have covered this doll in detail. Well, again, is this true? Well, from what I could find, the only proof that we have that this doll has done anything strange is the testimony of the Warrens, claiming that it's true. There's really no other documentation of this doll doing anything strange. We have no video, photographic, or audio evidence to back up any of these claims. Overall, I personally don't really think it's true. Next, we have the Men in Black. When you hear this term, you might think of the Will Smith movies. In fact, those movies are heavily inspired by this urban legend. In the Men in Black films, we have a secret government agency that deals with extraterrestrial visitors and threats. In this urban legend, we essentially have the same thing. The Men in Black are alleged government agents that wear black business suits and go around questioning, harassing, threatening, and memory wiping people that witness UFOs or alien life on Earth. Many UFO researchers and enthusiasts and supposed witnesses have claimed to have been actually visited by these men. Again, this urban legend became very popular and common during the Cold War and in the modern day, especially with the rise in government intelligence agencies and the overall secrecy of their operations. This has perhaps made people more paranoid and supposedly led them to believe that government agents are nefarious people going after normal citizens that could threaten the interests of the state. Now, personally, I feel like out of all the urban legends that we've covered so far, this seems to be the most reasonable to me. I don't think that Men in Black are part of some extraterrestrial related government agency, but I do definitely think that the government sends their agents around to the homes of normal citizens. And listen, we all know the government does bad stuff all the time. So to be honest, I wouldn't be surprised if there are real Men in Black types showing up at people's front doors. Next, we have the baby train. Now, this is definitely one of the weirder urban legends. This is an urban legend that is popular in the United States, United Kingdom, and Australia. The legend first appeared in the 1939 novel Kitty Foal. According to this legend, a certain small town had an unusually high birth rate. Supposedly, this was caused by passing trains that would blow their whistle as they passed through the town and ended up waking up all the residents at night. Usually this train passed when it was too late to go back to sleep and too early for couples to get up, so instead, they would decide to have personal relations. And this would result in a higher birth rate because no one used any birth control for some reason. This train would be dubbed the baby train because of these events. Now, this is just an urban legend that's kind of been passed around. There's never really been like a specific town that's been linked to it, but what is interesting that it's actually been documented in history that birth rates have gone up because of disruptive events. Some cities experienced increased birth rates after the February 1969 nor'easter in the US, the 9/11 attacks, and other such events. It's been summarized that when life is disrupted, people will resort to sex without fully worrying about any of the consequences. Next, we have the Shirikiya department store fire. On December 16, 1932, there was a large fire that occurred in Tokyo, Japan. It would result in the death of 14 people and injure another 67. The entire department store had 8 floors, and half of them would catch fire during this event. So you might be wondering, what exactly is the urban legend here? Well, it's a strange one. Apparently in the store, many of the women were wearing traditional kimonos, in which they didn't wear any underwear underneath. Because of this, some women refused to jump into the safety nets that were set up outside the building by firefighters. They were afraid that their exposed underparts would be seen by others, so instead of jumping, many of them decided to stay in the fire and perish. Now, this tale would spread throughout the entire world, and people would claim that the store actually ordered their saleswomen to start wearing underwear because of this incident. However, this legend is believed to be untrue. Most of the women in the building were actually saved, and there's no indication that the store forced anyone to change their outfits, or that people purposely stayed in the building. Next, we have the Crybaby Bridge. Now this isn't a reference to any one bridge or even one urban legend. Apparently, across the United States, there are bridges where it's claimed that the sound of babies can be heard crying. It is believed that these sounds are made by spirits of children that died near the bridge. Some of these children were murdered and others died in accidents. In some cases, you can even hear a mother crying alongside the child. Now, again, like many before, there isn't really any evidence to back this up. This is mostly just one of those spooky urban legends that people tell each other to frighten themselves. Next, we have the glitches in reality. If you've ever played a video game, you probably know what glitches are. They're usually errors in the game that cause strange and unexpected things to occur. However, the glitches in reality urban legend implies that these glitches can actually occur in the real world. Glitches that cause items to appear or disappear, or for natural items to act in unnatural ways, such as the laws of physics being broken. People usually refer to certain events that cannot be explained by understanding of the world as glitches in reality. Also, it's believed by some that we actually live in a matrix-type computer simulation, and that these glitches are errors occurring within the system. Now, who controls this simulation or is behind it is usually unknown, but many people actually believe in it, including big figures like Elon Musk. But essentially, this urban legend revolves around the idea of unnatural events occurring within our world that indicate the fact that we reside in some sort of a simulation. Of course, we cannot know for sure whether this is true. Someone have to break the simulation to find out for sure, and make their way back in to warn the rest of us. For the next one, we have Sex 2. You know, a lot of the time sequels always come with problems. Sometimes they aren't as good as the original, and sometimes they introduce things that no one asked for.
What'd you do?
I bypassed the compressor.
But this urban legend implies that there's a sequel out there that is actually better than the original. Everyone knows what sex is and doesn't need me to explain it. But apparently there's a sequel, at least according to this one urban legend. Well, I guess it's more of a meme than a legend. Back in October of 2017, jokes about Sex 2 became popular on social media. People began to joke that if sex is so good, then why isn't there a sequel? I mean, surely if something is this great, it requires a follow-up. That was the ridiculous premise of the joke. A few years later, in October of 2019, this meme would evolve, and people would begin to claim that Don Cheadle of all people was working on the sequel and that it would be released in 2021. Unfortunately, Don Cheadle let us down, and no sequel has been seen. Perhaps it was delayed due to COVID. Anyways, in conclusion, this is just a joke that was created on Twitter and has no basis in reality. For our last entry in this tier, we have crop circles. Well, most of you watching probably don't need a lot of explanation for this one. Crop circles are perhaps one of the most famous urban legends out there, especially if you live in North America. Crop circles are essentially patterns and designs made in fields by flattening crops, such as wheat or corn. This could be done intentionally by people or by natural events. However, some of these strange events have led to conspiracies of who or what is doing them, especially for those from whom no one has ever taken credit. Many people have theorized that some of these circles have been created by aliens as some sort of a sign or attempt at communication. The first documented crop circles actually go back as far as 1678, but have mostly gained popularity since the 1970s, alongside the increased popularity of UFOs and aliens. Most of the time, these formations are usually created overnight, near roads and population centers, and don't really appear in the middle of nowhere. This has led many to summarize that most crop circles are done by people. Well, that's all we have for this tier in particular. If you enjoyed it, I would really appreciate it if you could like, subscribe, and leave a comment below. And of course, I'll probably be finishing off this Iceberg by the end of the year, hopefully, and then I'll probably release a video with all of them combined together. Anyways, I hope you have a great day.